We welcome now Democratic strategist and partner at ARC Initiatives, Jonae Wartel, and NewsNation political contributor and former aide to George W. Bush, Denise Gitsham. Great to have you both, ladies. Thank you for being here. Jonae, I'd like to start with you. So the president said yesterday, every other country celebrates their victories. It's about time America did too. That's what we're doing tonight. Supporters say this was a show of strength, support for our military, savvy also for recruitment, and we know those numbers are way up. What are your thoughts on those points?
Well, it's an interesting juxtaposition of this narrative where, on one hand, you have the president and the Trump administration celebrating the military, and then on another hand, you have them deploying troops and creating a militarized situation in Los Angeles. So I think you have really this juxtaposition of two narratives. It seems a bit ironic that in this exact moment, when you have the president being protested by millions of Americans in dozens of cities, that he is in fact showing strength of a military that he has weaponized and further politicized to attack Americans on the streets.
So, Denise, critics of this parade say this was for the president's birthday. They've highlighted the cost, which reached upwards of, I think, $45 million was the number. What's your response to those who say we're already trillions of dollars in the hole? This shouldn't be a priority for spending. And also those who say this is politicizing the military.
Well, I would just say that how you feel about this parade obviously depends on what you feel about President Trump, right? I think a lot of the people who were doing the No Kings protests probably would have been on the National Mall yesterday celebrating our country and Flag Day and the Army's birth, 250 years ago, but for the fact that President Trump was leading it. So, politicization is a funny word that we like to leverage against people we disagree with. And often we're sort of blind to how we've sort of see things through a political lens ourselves, which hopefully, sort of some of the horrific events of yesterday morning really highlight sort of those blind spots in our own selves when we point the finger at others. But I don't know that this is more politicized. I mean, I watched the entire parade. I actually brought tears to my eyes because I'm a daughter of a veteran. I was raised on an Air Force base. I love our country. And I think a lot of the people who are on the other side of the aisle of this and maybe don't like President Trump would have felt the same way if they'd been there. So I want to tamp down on that conversation of how politicized this is and then really talk about how incredible it was to celebrate Flag Day, which was established in 1855, I learned, and also the founding of the Army that enabled our country to come into fruition.
Very important perspective. Jonae, do you see any merit to this type of parade? And if so, what would you do differently in the future?
I don't think there's any issue that anyone can take with celebrating the military. The service of our troops is truly admirable, and there is support across multiple political parties for our military. I think what's interesting more so is that you have a juxtaposition of what's happening in Los Angeles with the politicization of the military, the lack of coordination with any local elected officials and entities on the ground, many of whom are saying, please do not send troops in. And yet you have the Trump administration kind of ignoring them, right? Using them as a weapon to service their own agenda. I think that's really the contrast that many folks are criticizing in this moment. Not the celebration of the military in and of itself and a Flag Day, truly admirable, and our country is founded on those who fought and those who died. I think it's understanding how that contrasts so starkly with what's happening both in Los Angeles and across the country with this unrest.
Well, Denise, I'll pose that question to you. At the same time of this military parade, you did have the No Kings marches with millions of Americans in about 2,000 communities objecting to the president's assertion of his powers, saying that they violate the Constitution. You also had the ongoing protests against ICE. What do you say to those who argue that these events overshadowed the show of American force?
Yeah, I mean, again, I think it depends on the lens through which you see it. And for me, when you are a local or state official and you swear to uphold the Constitution, you swear to uphold the laws of the land. And the laws of the land are that illegal immigration is illegal, definitionally. And so if there's a lack of cooperation at the local and state level with a federal imperative, then that's really on the shoulders of the people who are trying to resist enforcing the federal law, which, again, they swore to uphold on the Constitution. They said we are upholding the Constitution and they swore in the Bible when they got sworn into office. So I have obvious strong feelings about the legality of and enforcing the law and the rule of the law. We also have a lot of compassion for the people who are being affected by this. And I think the use of the military is something that, honestly, based on what I saw in Portland and Los Angeles last night with the riots and the inability of the local police to actually get people to disperse or obey the local Democratic elected mayor's rule of like getting out of, going home and dispersing, they needed a lot of help. I mean, it doesn't take a politicized eye to see the reality on the ground in those videos. They needed all the help they could get. So whatever it took, I feel like I'm from California. I live here, and I'm really grateful that there are people that are enforcing the law of the land, but also enforcing the safety and protecting all of us who are not participating in these riots, and also the businesses. I mean, there's been so many businesses vandalized in the wake of all of these riots that are still ongoing. I want law and order. I don't want to be affected personally, and I'm grateful for the president sending troops and the National Guard to protect us because they're simply incapable of doing so at the local level.
Thank you for watching. Subscribe below and download our NewsNation app right now on your phone, and you will get fact-based, unbiased news for all Americans.